The most powerful prescription I've written in 26 years costs $1.20, not a copay. The actual thing. At your grocery store. I know you've probably already tried cutting things out, swapping things around, reading labels until your eyes go blurry, and you're still here. Which tells me the usual advice isn't cutting it. I'm Dr. Malik Jackson, board-certified internist, 26 years of practice. And I'll be straight with you. The medical system doesn't get paid to teach you this. But the research does not lie. A study out of the University of California showed that combining two specific things can amplify your immune response by 22 times. Not 22%, 22 times. Today I'm going to show you exactly what those things are. Starting with something sitting in your refrigerator right now and the part of it most people throw straight into the trash. That part, it's the most powerful piece of the whole thing. Tell me in the comments, when's the last time your doctor actually talked to you about food? Because what comes next changed how I practice medicine entirely. Before we dive in, I'm a doctor, not your doctor. This is education, not medical advice. Talk to your physician before making any major changes. Now, let me tell you about Sandra. She was 52 years old, 5th grade teacher, ran a 5K every Saturday morning with her neighbor. She wasn't someone you'd look at and think, that woman needs to worry about cancer. But Sandra came in for a routine scan, the kind most people skip because they feel fine, and her results showed something small. Something her previous doctor described as not worth worrying about yet. Sandra looked at me and said, "So I just wait?" I said, "No. We don't just wait, we work." And here's what I'm a little ashamed to admit 3 years earlier. I would have said the exact same thing her last doctor said. Just monitor it. Just watch and wait. Because that's what we were trained to do. It took a research paper from a colleague in Tokyo to shake me out of that thinking. So when Sandra sat across from me, I was ready to give her a different answer. Your body has microscopic clusters of abnormal cells right now. Most of them will never become anything dangerous. You know why? Because they can't get food. Think of it like a fire in a sealed room. No oxygen, no fuel, it just burns itself out. A tiny tumor without a blood supply can't grow past the size of a pencil tip. It's stuck. It has nowhere to go. But the moment blood vessels reach that cluster and start feeding it, that's when everything changes. We call this angiogenesis, basically the process where your body grows new blood vessels. It's a normal thing your body does. The problem is when cancer hijacks it, and when that happens, a tumor the size of a pencil tip can expand 16,000 times its original size in under 2 weeks. 16,000 times. In 2 weeks, that's not a metaphor, that's what the data shows. So the question isn't, do I have abnormal cells? Almost everyone does. The question is, are you giving those cells what they need to grow, or are you starving them? That's the whole game. And this is where food becomes medicine. Before I get into the specific foods, I want to say something, because I know some of you are watching this and thinking, I've heard this kind of thing before. Eat this, not that. Some superfood will save your life. I get it. The wellness world is full of noise. But what I'm showing you today isn't from a supplement company. It comes from the same lab systems used to develop actual cancer drugs. And when researchers ran those same tests on common foods, green tea, soy, tomatoes, the results stopped people cold. I'll show you the numbers in a second. Stay with me. Green tea first. The active compound is called EGCG, epigallocatechin gallate, if you want the full name. Hard to say, easy to drink, and when researchers at Harvard Medical School tested it against blood vessel formation in cancer tumors, it performed so well that a technician in the lab thought it was a pharmaceutical compound, not a cup of tea. A drug candidate. A 2004 study published in Cancer Research found that EGCG, that compound in green tea, inhibited angiogenesis, meaning it blocked the blood vessel growth that feeds tumors. And it did it at concentrations naturally found in just 2 to 3 cups of tea per day. Not supplements, not extracts, just tea. 2 to 3 cups. Now, here's one I guarantee you've heard the wrong thing about. Soy. How many of you have seen a magazine cover, something online, that basically said soy is dangerous for women? Raise your hand seriously. If you've believed that, this is the moment I want to fix it. Look, I used to hedge on this one. I used to say, well, the evidence is mixed, maybe be cautious. That was me not wanting to push back on something patients had heard 100 times. I was wrong to hedge. The data is actually pretty clear. The fear comes from confusing two completely different things. Phytoestrogens in soy and human estrogens, they are not the same molecule. They don't behave the same way. Genistein, the active compound in soy, actually blocks estrogen receptor activity. It doesn't copy it, it blocks it. And in breast cancer research published in the Journal of the National Cancer Institute, genistein was found to inhibit the formation of blood vessels feeding breast tumors. So soy isn't feeding breast cancer. In the research, it's doing the opposite, and that finding has been consistent for over a decade. Now, tomatoes, this one's actually kind of fun. Lycopene, the thing that makes tomatoes red, is one of the most studied anti-angiogenic nutrients we have. And here's the part most people miss. Cooked tomatoes release far more lycopene than raw ones. Far more. So that marinara sauce you thought was a guilty pleasure? It's working harder for you than the raw tomato in your salad. Cooking breaks down the cell walls. Your body absorbs more. The amount your body can actually use, what we call bioavailability, roughly doubles when you cook it. So, green tea, soy, cooked tomatoes, 3 foods, all working to cut off the fuel line that tumors depend on. Sandra started with green tea and tomatoes. She already liked both. She didn't overhaul her whole life, she just added 2 things. 6 months later, her follow-up showed the cluster had not grown. Her oncologist used the word stable. Sandra used the word good. But here's what I told her next, because cutting off blood supply to potential tumors is only one defense. Your body has another line, and most people are running it on empty without knowing it. I'm talking about your immune system, and what I found in the research on blueberries, honestly, it stopped me in my tracks. Derek was 61 years old when he first came to see me. Retired firefighter, still ran, still lifted, ate what most people would call a clean diet. And he was getting sick 3-4 times a year. Bad colds, flu that knocked him out for a week. He sat across from me, genuinely frustrated. "Doc," he said, "I do everything right. What am I missing?" I looked at his diet log. Protein, fiber, low on processed food, all solid. But there was almost nothing in his routine that directly fed his immune cells. He was building the engine but completely forgetting the fuel system. Think of your immune system like a volunteer fire department in a small town. They're always there, trained, ready, but if the town keeps cutting the budget, old equipment, fewer drills, aging trucks, they still show up when the alarm rings. They just show up with garden hoses instead of fire trucks. That's what we call immune depletion, basically. Your defenses are there, they're just running on minimal resources. Now, what refills that budget? Blueberries. A study out of the University of Michigan found that 1.5 cups of blueberries per day elevated T-cell levels, your primary immune defenders, by 88%. Not 8%, 88. And these weren't sick people. These were healthy adults. Their immune systems were already working fine. The blueberries pushed them significantly higher. T-cells, think of them as your body's special investigators. They identify and eliminate infected cells, mutated cells, early-stage cancer cells. When that count goes up, your body's early detection system gets sharper. 1.5 cups per day. That's it. Now, here's where it gets interesting and where a lot of wellness content gets this completely wrong. People talk about boosting immunity and reducing inflammation like they're two separate goals, sometimes like they conflict, like you have to pick one, you don't. Chronic inflammation and weak immunity aren't opposites. They're actually symptoms of the same imbalance. And blueberries, specifically the anthocyanins, the pigments that make them blue, address both at the same time. A 2018 study published in Nutrients showed those compounds reduced inflammatory markers while simultaneously increasing natural killer cell activity. Same compound, same dose, doing both jobs. Natural killer cells, by the way, different from T cells. NK cells don't need to identify a specific threat before they act, they patrol. They find things that look wrong and they eliminate them without waiting. Think of them as your body's standing night watch while T cells are the investigators. Blueberries elevated both. Quick pause here. If this is connecting for you, Hit the like button. It genuinely helps more people find this. And drop a comment telling me which of these foods you already eat. I read every one. Derek made one change. 1. He started adding a cup and a half of blueberries to his morning oatmeal. Frozen, fresh, didn't matter. That winter, the first winter in 4 years, he didn't get sick once. So we've cut off tumor blood supply, we've recharged the immune battery, but there's a third layer that almost everyone overlooks. And it involves a vegetable sitting in your fridge right now, probably being underused. Be honest, when you cook broccoli, do you throw away the stems? Because if you do, you've been throwing away the best part. Margaret was 67 when she came to see me. About 18 months after she recovered from COVID, her acute symptoms were gone, but her immune system felt like her words, a phone that never charges past 40%. Fatigue, frequent infections, brain fog on bad days. Her blood work was technically fine, everything within range, but Margaret knew something was off. She was eating clean, salads, lean protein, vegetables. But when I looked closely, she had almost no cruciferous vegetables in her routine. No broccoli, no kale, no cauliflower. That was the gap. Here's what sulforaphane does, and sulforaphane is the key compound in broccoli that most people have never heard of. Most nutrients work like adding more soldiers to your immune system. Sulforaphane does something different. It works more like upgrading the operating system those soldiers run on. Specifically, it activates a protein called NRF2. Think of NRF2 as your body's master repair switch. It controls over 200 genes involved in fighting oxidative damage, managing inflammation, and repairing cells. When it activates, it's like your body's entire maintenance crew shows up at once. Now, the florets, the treetops everyone eats, those are good. But the stems have roughly twice the sulforaphane. Twice. Most people cut them off and toss them. Don't do that. Blend the stems if you don't want to cook them. A quick broccoli soup stems, some vegetable stock, a bit of oregano takes 20 minutes and gives you twice the benefit per gram over the florets you're already eating. But if you want the number that made me actually pick up the phone and call the researcher because I thought it had to be a typo you need to know about broccoli sprouts, these are 3 to 4 day old baby broccoli plants. They look like alfalfa sprouts, sold in most natural food stores, and you can grow them on your kitchen counter for about $2. Broccoli sprouts contain 100 times more sulforaphane than mature broccoli. 100 times. I called the researcher at Johns Hopkins. I genuinely thought there was a decimal error. There wasn't. A study published in the journal Vaccine, one of the top peer-reviewed journals in immunology, took healthy 20-year-olds getting a standard flu shot and gave half of them a shake made from broccoli sprouts alongside the vaccine. The sprout group showed an immune response 22 times stronger than the vaccine-only group. 22 times. Same vaccine. The only difference was what they drank alongside it. Let me ask you something. If your doctor could hand you something that made your flu shot 22 times more effective with no side effects, for $2, would you take it? Of course you would. It's sitting in the produce section right now. 3 months after Margaret started adding broccoli sprouts to her morning salad, she came back in. Her inflammatory markers were down. Her energy was back to where it was before COVID. She said, "I feel like my battery is finally holding a charge again." That's not a miracle. That's what happens when you give your body the compounds it was designed to use. Quick note, because I want to be responsible about this. If you have thyroid issues, very high amounts of cruciferous vegetables may affect how your body processes iodine. Talk to your doctor before making big changes, especially if you're managing something ongoing. This video is education, not a prescription. So we've got the blood supply cut, the immune battery charged, the repair software upgraded, but there's one more piece, and this one surprised me most after 26 years, because it doesn't involve fighting anything. It involves protecting the thing in your body that, once it accumulates enough damage, becomes the origin point of almost every chronic disease we know, your DNA. I want you to picture something for a second. There's a whiteboard in every cell of your body. On it is written everything that cell needs to know how to divide correctly, how to make proteins, how to do its job without going wrong. Now imagine someone walking in every few minutes and randomly erasing pieces of it. pollution, stress hormones, processed food, UV radiation, normal metabolism, all of it causes what we call DNA lesions, small breaks or errors in the code. Every single day, your body repairs approximately 10,000 of these lesions per cell, 10,000. And most of the time, your repair systems handle it without you ever knowing. But when the damage starts outpacing the repair, that's when real problems begin. Here's the honest version of what happened when I went looking for foods that could help protect DNA. I was thinking expensive, exotic. I figured the answer would be some compound from a rare plant that most people couldn't access or afford. Then a colleague in New Zealand forwarded me a study about kiwi, $1.50 at most grocery stores. I almost didn't finish reading it because I assumed anything that cheap and that simple couldn't possibly work at that level. It did. A clinical trial published in the European Journal of Nutrition had participants eat 1 kiwi per day for 8 weeks. DNA damage measured using what's called a COMET assay, basically a test that tracks breaks in the DNA strand, decreased by 60% compared to baseline, 1 kiwi per day, 60% less DNA damage. They then ran a second group eating 3 kiwis per day. Not only did damage go down further, the body's ability to actively repair existing DNA breaks improved by approximately 60% as well. So 1 kiwi protects, 3 kiwis protect and repair. At $1.50 each, that's the most cost-effective DNA maintenance I've seen in 26 years. And I've seen a lot of supplements that cost 50 times that and can't say the same. Here's why it works. Kiwi has a very high concentration of vitamin C, but not the kind that just floats around generally in your bloodstream. The form in kiwi has been shown to localize near DNA strands and neutralize the oxidative molecules that cause strand breaks before they can do damage. Most antioxidants act like umbrellas. They catch what falls on them. Kiwi's vitamin C acts more like a waterproof layer built into the structure it goes where the damage happens, not just above it. Now, quick question. How many of you think about gut health when you think about DNA protection? Probably not many. Nobody really connects those two things. But here's what the research out of Singapore showed. Eating just 1 kiwi overnight began shifting the gut microbiome toward more beneficial bacteria within 24 hours. The microbiome, by the way, is the whole ecosystem of bacteria living in your gut, and it does a lot more than help you digest food. Your gut bacteria produce compounds called short-chain fatty acids. And those fatty acids directly influence which genes your cells activate, including the genes that run DNA repair. An unhealthy gut microbiome doesn't just cause bloating or irregularity. It quietly undermines your body's ability to fix itself at the genetic level. Picture this. It's Tuesday morning, you're standing in your kitchen, you slice open a kiwi, that bright green inside, the little starburst of seeds. You eat it plain, or throw it into a yogurt. 90 seconds. And in the next 24 hours, your gut starts shifting toward the species that produce the fatty acids your cells use to repair their own DNA. You didn't take a pill. You didn't follow a complicated protocol. You ate a piece of fruit that costs less than a lottery scratch ticket. Kiwi is also packed with prebiotic fiber, basically the food that feeds those beneficial gut bacteria and helps them thrive. Think of it as you're not just eating for yourself. You're feeding the whole ecosystem inside you that regulates almost everything else. 1 piece of fruit, 4 jobs: DNA protection, antioxidant defense, gut microbiome support, and immune regulation. I've been in medicine for 26 years. I still think that's remarkable. I spent most of those years telling patients what to remove. Cut the sugar, reduce red meat, stop the processed food, and those things do matter. I'm not walking that back. But I led with restriction for too long, and I watched people fail over and over, not because the advice was wrong, but because you can't build a life around what you're not allowed to have. The shift that actually changed things in my practice wasn't a new drug or a new diagnostic tool. It was learning to lead with addition instead of subtraction. You already like something that's good for you. I can almost guarantee it. Somewhere in what I've shared today, green tea, blueberries, broccoli, kiwi, something landed as real, something you could actually picture doing this week. Start there. One thing. That's it. The patients I've seen make the most lasting change aren't the ones who revamped everything on a Monday. They're the ones who added one thing, felt a difference, and let that pull them forward. So here's the practical breakdown before we wrap up. Basic level this week, just pick one of these 4 foods. The one you already like, green tea instead of a second coffee in the morning, blueberries in your oatmeal or yogurt, broccoli with dinner, and please don't throw away the stems. Or grab a kiwi as your afternoon snack. Intermediate pick 2, rotate them through the week, give it 30 days before you judge. Advanced, try making broccoli sprouts at home. 4 days on your kitchen counter. A small handful in a salad or smoothie gives you 100 times the sulforaphane of cooked broccoli, and time it around your next flu shot if you can. None of this costs more than your current grocery bill. None of it needs a prescription, and all of it is backed by research from institutions that have no financial stake in what you eat. The most common question I get is this: do I need to eat all 4 of these every single day? No, you really don't. Even rotating 2 or 3 of them through your week is meaningfully better than none. These defense systems are cumulative. Every positive input adds to the total. The goal isn't perfection, it never was. The goal is consistency over time without making yourself miserable. I want to tell you about Robert before I let you go. Robert was 71. He'd been my patient for 15 years. Heart bypass surgery at 64. His cardiologist gave him a solid prognosis, but Robert wasn't interested in solid. He wanted excellent. He started slow, just swapped his afternoon coffee for green tea. That was week 1. Then blueberries and breakfast, a few mornings a week, then broccoli sprouts twice a week, and kiwi, which he'd never eaten before, and, as it turns out, he loved. 18 months later, his CRP and IL-6-2 inflammatory markers we tracked closely after cardiac events had dropped significantly. His cardiologist called me, genuinely wanting to know what had changed. Nothing had changed in his medications. Not one thing. Only his grocery list. Robert used to call himself a bad patient, said he never followed through on anything long-term. But he followed through on this not because I threatened him, not because he was scared, because he felt different within the first month. And he couldn't argue with that. He told me something I've thought about almost every day since. He said, "Doc, I stopped waiting for my body to fail, and I started feeding it to succeed." That's the whole thing, right there. Your body is not working against you, it never was. It has systems running every single day, cutting off blood supply to things that shouldn't grow, tracking down threats, repairing DNA strand by strand, maintaining a gut ecosystem that regulates more than most people realize. It is already doing the work. The question is just, are you giving it what it needs to keep doing it? Everything in this video is for educational purposes only. It is not a substitute for personalized medical advice. If you have a chronic condition, are on medication, or are managing a serious diagnosis, please talk to your physician before making changes to your diet. Individual results vary. The most powerful pharmacy on the planet doesn't require a prescription. It just requires you to pay attention. If one thing from today stuck with you, just one, drop it in the comments. I read every single one, and your answer might be the thing that nudges someone else to take the first step. Next time, I'm going to show you what actually happens inside your body after 30 days of consistent changes and why the 3rd week is the exact point most people quit right before things start to shift. You won't want to miss that one.